Xbox really revealed to me over the last couple of days a big problem that I think they have, that I think they're going to have to find a way to solve. Sunday's show, which was their big Bethesda Xbox showcase, I thought was awful. It was, I made a video about it. It was not kind. I was very annoyed. Whew, I gotta say, that was terrible. Terrible fucking show. And, people were like, why are you so upset? I'm like, man, I'm passionate. It's not like my day was ruined, but I was like, man, I believe in Game Pass. I believe in what they're trying to do. But this was not good. And I'm like, well, they just can't seem to put out high quality games, and they don't look very good. And where are their big games? Where's their Christmas game? A lot of that still applies, by the way. But what was really interesting to me and really neat and surprising, Tuesday, they had the deep dive.
Welcome to Xbox Game Showcase Extended. I'm Aaron, this is Malik, and we have the honor of diving deeper into some of the most exciting and talked about announcements, as well as gameplay from the Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase just 2 days ago.
They brought out Pete Hines from Bethesda, and they brought out Sarah Bond, and a number of these people from Xbox and the developers are working with. And they drilled down on a handful of the titles. And it was absolutely night and day. Let me give you a good example. I'll give you a really good example. Starfield on Sunday, I did not think looked very interesting at all. I remember at one point, I don't know if I was rolling my eyes, but emotionally I was rolling my eyes. Internally I was rolling my eyes. Like when I saw this. And I was just like, this is so rote and boring and dumb. It doesn't even look like fun choring up, grinding, mining to get cool abilities. It's like, what is this, right? And to me, that was like a symbolic shot of just everything that was wrong with this. I'm like, why aren't you guys pushing these teams to wow us, to wow the audience, to wow the customer? Well, then with the deep dive on Tuesday,
look, there's a lot of folks who take a lot of different approaches on what does an open world mean. And Bethesda Game Studios always pushes themselves to the most freedom and least limitations, right? Where the items in the world are all real things. You walk into a store and there's a bunch of weapons or whatever. Like, that's not just art on a countertop. Like, you can pick those up. You can steal them and run out of it. You can create chaos. Like, we don't want to put too many limits on what the player is or isn't allowed to do. We love it when players say, I wonder what happens if, and then they try it. And then they get to see, like, oh my Lord, chaos ensued and it was insanity. Everybody was shooting at me. And like, that's, I think, the beauty of Bethesda Game Studios and the number of ways that they push for you to explore that, right? It's not just one, it's you could spend thousands of hours doing nothing but shipbuilding and like focus that as all you're about, and that's okay. But you could also be about exploring every planet and finding all of the good, and that's okay. Or you could just play the main story and be like, I want a kind of experience that I'm guided through so that I kind of get to see stuff, and I might stop here and there. Oh, there's a cool side quest that I got, but I want something that sort of leads me through because I'm a little, it can be a little daunting to say you can go do whatever I want. Like, ooh, I don't know what I should do. So some folks want a little bit of a guided path or to understand where the fun is, and no approach is wrong. Like, for me, that's epic because it says we aren't putting any limits on what you can or can't do. We're going to set you loose and just sit back and watch the beauty that you create with your own stories and the way that you solve problems or choose to spend your time in this world we've created.
And I'm like, oh, well, this is interesting now. That shot had not changed, but what had changed was the context of it. Where he says, whether he's talking about the 1,000 planets, which he dove deep into and he gave a really good explanation, that was actually over on IGN, or he was just talking about building bases, getting resources, gathering resources. When you understand that the game is so open and the game is at least attempting, now it may fail, but when they pitch it as this is big and open, and yes, there's a main core path that's handcrafted, there's a lot of procedural stuff that's not on the main path, but there's going to be choring of resources to build the base, to build your gear, to build your spaceship, right? And suddenly you start to imagine, okay, if there's a, this wasn't Todd, this was me just fantasizing, but it's like, okay, let's say you discover a black hole, and it's like, yeah, your ship can go through that, and you can see what's on the other side, but you need a really fucking good ship. And to get a good ship, you're going to have to go down to some hostile planets and fight and survive and chore this shit up. Well, suddenly That's a lot more interesting. That's a lot more interesting than just beautiful graphics. Then you're like really engaged and addicted. Another example is this game that I just thought looked stupid, and it still looks a little wonky because I think they feel a little bit too beholden to prestige television. I've heard that so much in games since Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad. It's like all these developers want to do that. I'm just like, ugh, it's so cliche. But, so I still don't know how it's going to be. But when I saw this, I think it's called is Dusk Falls. I was just like, at first, on Sunday, I was like, ugh, it looks dumb, boring, crappy, whatever, move on with my life. But then when I heard them talking about it and really getting into the weeds with it on Tuesday, it sounded pretty cool, actually. It sounded like, okay, I'll try this. I like that you can play it with 8 players. It can up to 8 player online. It is very much sort of choose your own adventure in part, but you're competing to sort of be the one or the group that votes for what you want to see, and you can kind of throw in things to sort of get what you really want, even if you lose the vote at times.
You share the same character, you discuss, you make decisions, and majority wins. It's like each player is like a voice in the character head.
And it's ambitious, and I like when they express the idea that there's a lot of different choices and endings and branches and stuff, and I go, well, suddenly this art style, which looks really kind of cheap to me, begins to make a lot more sense, because I'm like, okay, the art style may not be Ratchet and Clank or Horizon Forbidden West, which are 2 of the best looking games of all time, but those games are very locked in. You know what you're going to do. Yeah, you've got freedom within this path or this open world, but you're still pretty much, everyone's going to have the same experience. Well, here, they're like, we could make it look photoreal, or we could take some chances and have the game actually feel like it's unfolding based on your choices and you're living in this story. Now, is it going to work? I don't fucking know. But suddenly when they express it that way, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm interested. And here's the challenge. Sunday, they were relying on the marketing playbook that has been established. Probably it started since Sega was doing their 16-bit Sega shit back in the 90s, all the way up until recent. You gotta wow them. It's gotta be flashy. The graphics have to be great. The production value has to be off the fucking hook. Like Callisto Protocol. Is it off the hook or off the chain? AM51, BM White, and CM51. Did I already say that? But like, look at Callista Flockhart. Look at Callisto Protocol. Now, I'm exceptionally excited for that. I loved Dead Space 2, thought it was fucking phenomenal. One of my favorite games of all time. Top 20 easy, maybe higher. Callisto doesn't look like it's doing anything all that unique from a gameplay standpoint. It may, but what they showed, they used the old playbook of marketing and they nailed that fucker. It was exciting because of the gore and the combat felt satisfying. The art looked great. It sounded cool. The pedigree of the team was like, we've made this kind of game before. You know what this is. Your expectations will be met. And it might be, by the way, it might be incredibly unique. It doesn't need to be, though. Right? If it's just Dead Space 2 with a new coat of paint and a bit of a new story, because obviously it's not the Dead Space, fine. I'm down. Let me play it. Can't wait. Day one. But the stuff that they're doing on Xbox, first party and second party, seems to be a lot more outside of the box. Not that what Starfield's trying to do that's never been done before, but they're obviously trying to take it to the next level, make it bigger, make it more varied in terms of how it feels like your story. Same thing with this, the Dawn game. I don't know, terrible title. And there was all throughout Tuesday's show. Grounded has never interested me. But suddenly on Grounded, they say this.
What can players expect from the 1.0 launch of Grounded?
The big one, of course, is going to be a complete game, and that means story, right? From beginning to end, you can play through, why are you here? Who put you here?
Yeah, exactly.
And how are you going to get home?
And that was from Tuesday, not Sunday. Sunday, it just looked like another fucking big deal. It's a fucking survival arc game. Who cares? But when he said that on Tuesday, I'm like, oh, there's a single player campaign Honey, I Shrunk the Kids game, and it looks like this? Okay, I'm totally in. Same thing with Redfall. Redfall, I was like, oh God, another Back 4 Blood, another Left 4 Dead. It's like, okay, I'm tired of it. And I was just like, no. And then we hear Pete Hines from Bethesda say this.
Arcane Studios is known for really amazing, immersive sims. They do any number of things. If you play games of theirs, Dishonored, Dishonored 2, Prey, there's a lot of common threads you'll find in them. They create really amazing, believable worlds. I think that's a big part of their game is when you're in Dunwall or you're up on a space station in Prey, that it feels believable. There's a reason why things are the way they are. They're also a big believers in systems-based as opposed to scripted. So they really embrace player freedom and sort of giving players the tools to decide, you figure out how you want to complete this mission or get through this area. We're not going to tell you how. We're just going to give you tools and then give you the freedom to go and do. But, there's great characters and interesting story. They bring a lot of different elements and then really let the player create the experience. Look, on the surface, it's a first-person shooter that you can play solo or with up to 4 players. And so immediately you might say, well, it's not a single player game, so it must be wildly different. And don't get me wrong, there's absolutely ways in which it is different. But I think when folks play the game, and even when they see more of the game, I think they'll start to see all of those things about an Arcane game that they love and appreciate. If you want to play a game by yourself and get a great Arcane story, you can absolutely do that in Redfall. But you can also do things that you haven't been able to do in an Arcane game, like experience it with friends and find out sort of how the whole can become greater than the sum of the parts. You almost are going to want to try and play Redfall a couple of different ways. You might want to play it by yourself a little bit, play it with others, and it's a game that allows you to do either or both of those things.
Is it hyperbole? Probably a little bit. I don't think it's going to be as rich as the other single-player Arcane simulations, but still, the fact that he's saying it's not just what it looks like, Back 4 Blood or Left 4 Dead, it's got a narrative. It's a single-player campaign that you can go and get lost in the world and discover these characters and stories. And I'm like, oh. So here's the problem. You can't just have Xbox do the Tuesday show where they dive deep and forget the Sunday show where it was just Flash. Well, look at the ratings on the Sunday show. It's huge compared especially to the Tuesday show, which is less sexy and exciting, but it has more value in terms of communicating what the games are. To watch it live on Tuesday and watch the numbers start not very high to begin with and just drop during the whole thing. And at the end, it was like 30% of what it was. There's not a lot of people who care for this kind of information, especially when they want to get them excited about what they want to buy next. By necessity and by choice, and I think it's both, Game Pass, as I've said numerous times, the exciting part about Game Pass or PS Plus 2.0 or whatever, any of these subscription services, is they have the opportunity to try things that don't have to be insanely obviously commercial because they already have an audience, at least for 30 days with a month subscription. Just say, fuck it, I want to play something, I'll try it. It's the exact same reason. Look, if I showed you this trailer,
Bond.
and then I showed you this trailer, and you didn't know what this second trailer was, most people would go, well, yeah, I want to see the first one. I know what that is. I know what kind of thing that is. I'm down. Well, Squid Game was a massive success, obviously, for Netflix. No one saw it coming. It didn't have a big budget. It was fucking in America, of course. It was subtitled, which, most people will tell you, oh, I don't want to read subtitles. But it was a huge viral hit. Well, that exists because Netflix needed content to keep people interested. And because you already have it, they don't need to make every single experience that they put on their system a $200 million movie. Here's another great example, The Boys. Now, I haven't watched a lot of The Boys. I like what I've seen. I read some of the comic by Garth Ennis. It's a big hit. A lot of people love it. But if I showed you this, which is obviously from Marvel, and then if I showed you this from The Boys, look at the effects here. The head exploding was awesome, but when they actually are standing in the wide shot, it just looks absolutely terrible. That's so CG, that's so crap, that looks terrible compared to what you're used to seeing in even a B-tier Marvel movie. Well, if you were seeing a trailer, you'd go, oh, I'm not going to go see it. It looks like shit, maybe. I mean, you probably would because it's bloody and it's fun, but it doesn't have the same level of polish. But they're doing a lot more interesting, subversive storytelling in The Boys that you're not going to get in Marvel. The very nature of Game Pass says, not all games, of course, just like Netflix, they're making some of the most expensive movies in the industry right now. I think they're doing a $280 million movie with The Rock right now. But most of their shit can't be as expensive as that. Most of Game Pass's stuff, obviously Halo's $500 million. Sounds like they definitely want to spend some money and make some big hits like that. I don't know if they can, never have, but we'll see. But the very nature of it, because they either are spending less but doing more creative, or simply doing more creative because they can greenlight things that would never have a chance if you were selling it for $20 or $40. The kind of games you're going to get from that don't sell with the Sunday playbook. They sell with the Tuesday playbook, but the Tuesday playbook is not interesting for your average person. Maybe it's an issue of trailers. Maybe you still want to make a 3-minute great trailer, but it somehow communicates what they communicated on Tuesday, but it's more condensed. I have no idea. I haven't thought about that. I just know that watching Sunday and Tuesday not only was night and day, but it totally made me go, oh, I'm very excited to still have my Xbox and play Game Pass, because there's a lot of cool shit. I may not like any of it, but it's interesting, and I'm down for that. So Xbox, that's their job to figure out. I just sit here and complain about things. There you go. I hope you're well. Hope you're safe. And I'll see you on a future video or a future stream. Like it, subscribe, hit the bell. If you want me, again, I'm not asking for this, and I'm just giving you a heads up. There's this thing called Super Things down below. It's brand new. I will try to answer your questions anyway. I don't want you to have to pay to get a question answered, but sometimes if I'm not really interested in answering that question, or if it's not from a member, I'll be like, I'll talk about it later. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. If you want a guaranteed answer, send me a Super Thanks, any level, and I promise you I will get an answer to that within 24 hours. So, or a response, whatever. Unless it's like stupid, then I'm like, go fuck yourself. If it's stupid and it's fun, I'm down. If it's stupid and it's kind of like, I hate everyone who's not exactly like me, not me, but you, maybe I'll answer it, but I'll call you a fucking racist moron. Be well. See you soon.